is a great time to get going on various projects in the garden. We're going to do a little transplanting. We're going to check out the compost pile. It's time for turning the pile for the last time. We've turned it a couple times and it's fairly well decomposed. So as a result, we'll be working on that. Also, fall is the best time to be dividing your herbs. We want to work with the mint, the scallions, and other related plants from the herb garden. So I'd like to start the program with working on plants that you could utilize for good fall color. And one of them is not the climbing hydrangea, but the oak leaf hydrangea. And you notice that this plant actually it has gone through its coloring, but from the back of the leaf you can see that it has red in it. It has red here, so it has a vivid red color. This year it didn't display the red color because of the hard freeze we had, but last year the color was vivid red, and next to the sourwood tree, which is red, and trident maple, which is in the background. These three in combination with other plants such as the Crips Camiciferus, which is in the same area, which complements the fall coloring for this little plot of the or area of the the Pauplis arboretum. And in back of me is a threadleaf Camiciferus, which grows about the same height as this Crips Camiciferus. This grow about 15 feet tall, and so will the one in back of me. Actually, it's probably just about mature now. Might grow a little bit higher than that. But we'll start by planting this I have a mental block on climbing hydrangea. It's my most beautiful plant. But this is the oak leaf hydrangea, and it's very valuable for fall color. And I'll put it in a hole. Well, before I do that, I'll put it off to one side. I want to add a little bit of compost. How can I ever forget Pauplis Farm compost? That is a requirement for all planting here at the farm. I'll put it in and turn it. And shovel it back out. Get that hole made to accept this plant. And backfill around the plant. Now the compost that I'm using is this year's compost, and even though it's not quite ready, it's ready because the fact that even though we have a few leaves that I can see have not really fully decomposed, but that's okay because the nutrients are being available now for the plant to take hold. It's partially decomposed, and I know that because the pile is heated up a couple times, so it's been working. The bacteria has converted the leaves and broken down the plant to the point where the nutrients are available to the plant. So I'll put some extra compost around the base of this plant. It won't burn the plant, so that's very good. In fact, you can see that in the compost itself, you got hay growing and grass. That's probably hayseed from this particular compost that hasn't fully decomposed, and I can use that as mulch. Put that around the base. partially decomposed compost. Very good for the plant. Then I'll get some pine needles to finish off. This provides good insulation for the plant because it is newly transplanted. Again, you don't want that root ball to freeze and deny the plant of its moisture. And then I'll put this fence here around the plant so the lawnmower doesn't run into it. I'll stake it off camera, but give you an idea of the type of protection you want for that particular plant. Now the compost pile is ready to be turned, and I'll show you how we can classify the pile into something that's fairly decomposed and straw compost, which is not quite decomposed, but I'll show you what that's all about. Compost is the heart of the farm. It's where we do all our recycling. Without it, the farm wouldn't be the way it is, because we're recycling all of the leaves, all of the brush, anything that has been growing or was alive, we recycle to make valuable compost. Now, I had mentioned that we want to turn the pile, but before I can do that, I've got some material here that needs to be composted for next year, and also leaves being raked and collected to my left. So we've got to move this pile so we can bring these two big piles of raw materials together to make our pile for the year 2002 vintage compost. So we're on a roll. The pile is roughly, I'd say, 90% complete. However, the material that's on top of the pile naturally didn't see all the heat, so as a result it is not fully decomposed, but it's still valuable as compost. Generally, what I like to do with something like this, you can see that it's got a lot of hay and undecayed leaves. I generally like to use it as mulch, or I'll just put it in another pile off next to the compost pile. Just keep it separated from the rest of the good compost. Not that this isn't any good, it's still good, but I'll just take off some of the raw compost, you might say, and put it in a wheelbarrow. And put it in a pile here. So generally, what I like to call that is a raw compost pile, and the material which is more decomposed, which is inside, is what I use for mixing with the soil as a soil conditioner. So I won't go through filling up that wheelbarrow, but gives you an idea what we do here at the farm. And I'll place that in a pile next to the raw compost until all of this is moved out. When I move it out, then I'll start making my compost pile for next year. Probably won't be able to do too much this year, but I can pick it up in the spring. What I have is leaves, and I've got vegetable matter here. I've got chrysanthemums, gladiolus, grass, sod, and most importantly for the compost pile is ginkgo leaves, which adds a lot of nutrient. Of course, I'll add nutrient. And hay, which is partially decomposed. Even though it's in bale form, it's decomposed where it's closest to the ground. So it's decomposing already, even though it's not in the compost pile yet. But it'll be good material for composting next year. So why don't we go to the herb garden and divide scallions and other herbs in the garden. Scallions are a great vegetable or herb to have. You can have it either as an herb or a vegetable, and we like it because it's easy to grow, it has great flavor, and I have a clump here. I have actually a row which I just worked on, and it grows in clumps like this, and the way you divide it is just pulling it apart, and you can increase the number of plants considerably. In fact, each one of those you can have 2 clumps there, and 3, 4, 5, maybe about 5 or 6 clumps for this. But what I'll do is just break it up into 3 clumps, and there you have 3 clumps, and we'll place it on the ground and make room for it. Plant 1 clump here, and the depth is right up to the sheave that's here, about halfway up, and the other clump. So from one big clump I've got 3 clumps. And we have chives that you can handle in the same way, just by breaking it apart. This is a rather large clump. See, we can break it up into either 2 clumps or 3 clumps, 4. I'll do it with 2 clumps and do it in the same way. So we have scallions. We also have oregano. Here's a clump of oregano that we want to divide up. So we'll just dig it up. This clump is about 1 foot in diameter, and I'll just send the spade right through it. Doesn't want to break. We'll take it out and break it. Best way to do it is work from the underside. There we go. Got to use brute force. Now we have 2 clumps of oregano, and you'll find that you'll have to break each clump up almost every 2 or 3 years, and it's a good way to increase the amount of oregano. It's a prolific grower. Don't have to worry about replenishing this. You can divide it. So I'll just put it back in its divided state. There we go. Two plants of oregano, I'll mark it. And another herb that we have is mint. Well, it doesn't look like mint too late in the season. However, I can tell that it's mint by breaking some of the branches and just squeezing them. It's mint. So this is a very interesting plant. We can dig it up, and it has a lot of root formation, so you just break up the roots and divide them up. Try it here. Now I can tell by the feel this is a big ball. Now this is the type of root system that you have. Quite massive. So you have this set of roots. You can break it apart. So you got two plants here. Three. Dig a little bit more. There's some fresh roots. So you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plants, all from one big ball. And you want to plant it in the same manner in which you found it. It's layered. I'll just cover this up. So it grows horizontally in the garden. So we'll layer it like this. There's another young root. And you can go on and on down the row. I'll just put these aside for now, cover them with soil so they won't desiccate. I'll plant them later. I'll cover this up. Now I've extended this row about 2 feet, and I've still got the original plant here. So we've got about 4 feet of planting space here. And then we've got the remainder of the roots, which we'll put in the herb garden next to the kitchen. Now, another plant which is not an herb, but this is interesting. This is Chinese lantern, which grows in the same manner. And I'll show you what that looks like. This is great for decoration. It's a perennial, comes up every year. Doesn't seem like you can kill it. Very nice. Now here's a root. And there might be some more roots. We'll take a look. There's another root. So it's a very lengthy plant. And so this needs a lot of room to grow, and what I'll do is just put it off to one area and plant that in the location that I want. So I'll just heel them in for now, and that shows you exactly what you can do to increase Chinese lanterns. I've got them here, and I've got them in another section of the garden where I don't want to lose them, so I'll just keep on propagating them. And it's a great thing to have around the house for dried arrangements. So let's go off and plant the Gala apple tree. Gala apple is one of the better apples, if not the best apple for apple pie. And I like Gala, I like McIntosh and Red Delicious. I'd rate about those three as the best, but of the group, because I just love apples. I mean, I just love apple pie. What is more American than apple pie? So I'll just have all kinds of apples here at the orchard. So I want to plant this particular apple, and it was purchased in the spring, and I didn't have any place to put it at the time, but now I have a place in the orchard, and you'll notice that it's got these horizontal roots, and what you want to do is keep the roots in the horizontal fashion when you plant it. So we'll backfill and just keep on backfilling and keeping these roots. You don't want them compressed like that, because you're not doing the plant a service. It really wants to grow that way, and it gets more nutritional buildup or pickup with its growth in that manner. So I'll place it aside right now. What I want to do is put some compost in with this soil, which is very important. Put a little in there. Mix it in. Take it out. Now you'll see that compost is going to be backfilled right around these nice tender roots. This tree, by the way, is a dwarf tree, and it's grafted rather high, and naturally you want to keep that graft union high, because you don't want this portion to root, because this is a dwarfing stock. This is what keeps the tree small. So we must make sure that we do plant it in a way that that graft union is above the ground. We'll backfill around. This is a job that you've got to do by hand. Tender, loving care. Now we don't have those roots. Here's the label. Almost lost it. I have a label here too. It's always good to have two labels on the tree. Now backfill around it. And of course you want to water it. Make sure it doesn't dry out. And the basic rule, the three basic things you must remember when you're transplanting, and it's sort of like a joke, but not really a joke. It's you want to water the plant, and water the plant. So that's the most important thing. Planting it this way is important too. They're all important, but water is the most important, because it'll die if you don't do it. Now we'll put some coarse compost on top for mulch. And you want to protect the plant. And these are spiral plastic protectors, and just twist them on in this fashion. Go on very easily, and this protects the plant from mice attack. Oops, going the wrong way. Because they can do a number on your plant during winter. They'll go burrowing on the snow and eat the bark. They love the cambium. And if you can't buy these or find these, you can use wire mesh, and you want to make sure the mesh opening is small enough so the mice don't pass through it. Don't use chicken wiring. Use something that's small. So let's go to the peach tree and do some peach pruning. Although this peach tree doesn't really need pruning right now, I want to demonstrate how I do the pruning. What I'm doing currently is just to look at the peach tree and see where I might have a problem with the peach tree. And so what I'll do is, the rule of thumb is to prune when the tree is fully grown, is to prune every other branch that's on this particular limb. And then, of course, on an apple tree, you'll have a lot of suckers growing up. This one doesn't. This peach tree doesn't have any suckers, but apples typically do have a lot of suckers. So any branch like this one is growing into that branch, so I'll prune this one out. And that'll stay. That might interfere later on, but we'll let that stay. Here's a small branch that I'll prune out. And some of the lower branches, which when you're mowing the lawn, might get broken off. So rather than have them broken off with a jagged break, a smoother cut is better. So I'll just prune out some of these smaller branches. That's about it. I don't see any other interfering branches. Sometimes you want to prune back a little on the tops just to promote more vigorous growth, and that I'll do. You generally do that with apple trees. You just cut back about 6 inches, 6 to 12 inches. So that's about it for the tree, and I'll leave that top leader there, and it'll add nutrients for this particular plant. So I hope you enjoyed this show. We've done a lot of work. I enjoyed bringing to you the accomplishments of the ginkgo pile, the actual compost pile made with ginkgo leaves. So that's I'm waiting to see the results of the ginkgo leaves in that pile. I'm sure it's going to make a big difference in all of the plants. I'm sure my plants will be double the height with the ginkgo leaves. So that's about it for now, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Bill Pauplis, gardening at Pauplis Farm.